Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York is joining us. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. Let's get right to the substance. Do you think this push to protect Robert Mueller by this bipartisan, very small coalition in the Senate stands any real chance of surviving?
Well, I certainly hope so, because the Congress, as a separate and co-equal branch of government, has to make sure that the integrity of this investigation remains intact. Our democracy was attacked in the context of the 2016 presidential election, and we need to get to the bottom of what happened and allow the Mueller investigation to proceed in a calm, dispassionate, fact-based fashion with an erratic White House that may be prepared to try to jettison him. We cannot allow that to happen.
The renewed anxiety surrounding Robert Mueller and his team comes after the appointment of the acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, who has publicly denigrated the entire Russia probe. The Justice Department, though, is now arguing that his appointment was, in fact, constitutional. How do you see it?
Well, we have an independent Article III judiciary that ultimately will have to resolve that question. It does appear that the appointment was constitutionally and legally flawed. But ultimately, the federal court system will have to work that out. It is an example of what happens when you have an administration and a president who makes decisions that don't appear to be grounded in any thoughtfulness as it relates to the Department of Justice, the administration of a fair and even-minded investigatory process, and that's unfortunate. And we're going to do our job as a separate and co-equal branch of government to uphold our constitutional responsibilities, while at the same time focusing on resolving real problems for the American people to improve their quality of life. You
sit on the House Judiciary Committee. In just 2 months after January 3rd, Democrats will control that committee. Your party will get a chance to decide which investigations you want to pursue. Are Democrats going to pursue an immediate investigation into the Whitaker appointment?
Well, that's for the chairman, in partnership with the members of the majority of the House Judiciary Committee, to decide. But I do think that generally we should proceed with caution. We have to make sure that we uphold our oversight responsibilities. But we were elected into a majority based on a promise to focus on lowering health care costs, increasing pay for everyday Americans, for cleaning up corruption and the mess in Washington, D.C., for improving the quality of life of the American people by focusing on kitchen table pocketbook issues, and we cannot lose sight of that.
What else would you like to see your committee, the Judiciary Committee, look into? You're going to very soon have a subpoena power.
Well, we have a broken immigration system, and we have the ability on the House Judiciary Committee to try to rectify what is clearly a broken system, and to do it in a bipartisan way. We have to make sure, with all of the problems that we've seen and the voter suppression efforts in places like Georgia and Florida and Texas and North Dakota, that we make sure that the integrity of our democracy is protected, that we restore the Voting Rights Act, and that's a Judiciary Committee level responsibility in terms of jurisdiction. So there's a whole host of things that need to happen, while also making sure that no one is above the law in this country, that the administration of justice is allowed to proceed, and that Bob Mueller can be Bob Mueller, that he can bring this investigation to a conclusion, and then we can report the facts to the American people and figure out what needs to happen from there.
Let me get your reaction to what we just saw live here on CNN a few minutes ago. The president coming out in favor of bipartisan legislation for criminal justice. It's called the First Step Reform Act. There were Democrats there, Republicans there. They clearly want to do something about allowing prisoners who get out of prison to have a second chance. This is a serious move, the president says, and he wants to work together with Democrats to do something about this. What's your reaction?
Well, it's a very positive step in the right direction. The First Step Act is actually legislation in the House where I was the lead Democratic sponsor, as you know, Wolf, and the lead Republican sponsor was Doug Collins, a conservative Republican from rural Georgia, and I'm a very progressive Democrat, pragmatically progressive, but progressive Democrat from Brooklyn. And we worked together to forge a bipartisan consensus around the fact that we have a mass incarceration problem in America. an overcriminalization problem in America that's out of control, and we have to break the back of the prison industrial complex, and we need to begin to do so with the First Step Act so we can help currently incarcerated individuals successfully transition into society, reduce recidivism, and save taxpayer dollars. This is a positive step in the right direction. We have to see the Senate Act, and then we're going to have to see the House of Representatives Act, and then hopefully we can show America that Democrats and Republicans can work together to get things done.
Well, if the president is serious about this, that would be a really, as you say, a very positive move in terms of getting Republicans to work with you, the Democrats, in order to get this passed in the House and the Senate.
Well, that's correct. And the original version of the First Step Act, which passed the House of Representatives in May, did so in a strongly bipartisan vote. 360 people voted for it. Only 59 voted against it. The Senate, led by Grassley and Durbin and Cory Booker and others, have been negotiating some enhancements to try to make sure we do something about sentencing reform, which I certainly would embrace, and Cedric Richmond, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and others, I believe, will embrace. We want the strongest possible bill to come out of the Senate. The administration appears to be signaling support for it, and then hopefully we can get something done in the House and send something to the president's desk for his signature.
Have you met with Jared Kushner, who was the White House lead in trying to generate support for this legislation?
I've met with Jared Kushner several times over the run-up to the negotiation of the bill in the House, and have continued to talk with him in the months thereafter, and he's been a very positive force in terms of trying to get something over the finish line. I believe he's authentically committed to a good, substantive bill, and look forward to continuing to work with him on this issue.
You think this is potentially opening the door to further bipartisan cooperation with the President of the United States? We know that among the Democrats in the House, there's a lot of opposition to what the President is doing. But is there an area now, is there an opening for cooperation with the President?
I think it absolutely can present an opening. The House Democratic majority will now be operating from a position of strength, and we've articulated a set of issues that we think there are bipartisan avenues of support available to getting something done. The president has said he wants to lower the high cost of prescription drugs. We've said that. We want to lead the way and make sure that we can get something done. We need a real infrastructure plan. We have one, $1 trillion. It will create 16 million good-paying jobs. Hopefully we can meet the president halfway there toward what he'd like to accomplish, and he'll come toward our view of the world and really fixing our crumbling bridges, roads, and tunnels.
Well, if you can do that, if you can get some bipartisan cooperation like that, I think the American people would be very, very pleased, especially in those areas you just discussed where there potentially is some good cooperation.